What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video, guys. If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the post notification bell because we're on the road to 100K. And we cannot get there without you guys, all right? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
The origins of Carnival trace back to Europe with extravagant costume parties before the beginning of Lent, the Catholic period of fasting. When Europeans colonized the Caribbean and the Americas, they brought along the tradition, which took a new flavor once the slave trade from Africa began. Fast forward to today, and the Carnival circuit is now an international phenomenon. We invited our next two guests to discuss the history and culture of Carnival, from its origin, dazzling costume and dance, and the theme behind celebration in different countries. Joining us for this segment, Patricia Saunders, Associate Professor of English and Director of the Caribbean Literary and Cultural Studies program at the University of Miami, and Rose Kelly Prescott, Costume Designer and Band Leader and founding member of the Carnival Band Heritage, TNT. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Definitely. Well, Patricia, let me start with you and tell me a little bit about the story of Carnival. Where did it originate and how was it brought to the Caribbean?
Well, I mean, as far as the date can be contested, but I think in the late, I would say 1770s, 1780s, there was a cedula of population that brought a number of Spanish-speaking people to Trinidad in particular. The French soon followed, and with them came the tradition of Carnival. So it's several hundred years old in the English-speaking Caribbean. Of course, as the slave trade began, some of these, like many other traditions in the Caribbean, it was creolized. It was creolized when the slaves took different aspects of the Carnival and imbued it with their own meaning, their own religious symbolism. The important thing to remember about Carnival, this is also a tool for social and political commentary. So the slaves used that as a moment as well to resist and to borrow from this tradition as a means of criticizing not only slavery, but their masters. And most importantly, what we don't think about is that the Carnival tradition also became a way of expressing freedom, even in the context of slavery. Obviously, that continued to change from the 18th century right up to the 21st century.
And this is the example of Trinidad, but it happened this way in other islands, even if it was not an English-speaking island, like French Island, it was the same way also, how they use the Carnival. Rose, I know that you teach kids, you teach children the history of Carnival. Why do you think it's important for them to know that it's just not about the costume and the partying and the walking in the streets?
Because the kids are the future of Carnival. And if they don't know the history, then they won't be able to express themselves and know what the dancing and the revelry is all about. You know, so there was a need to teach these kids because they've come here, the parents came here and the kids are here, but the children don't know about Carnival. And the parents never taught them. So I thought it's a great idea if I could just teach these kids what Carnival is all about.
Can you explain the relation with the Catholic religion?
Yes, Carnival started from Christmas to Ash Wednesday. And it was the people dressed in with masks. They used a lot of masks from the French. And this hid themselves, and then they on Ash Wednesday they would go to church and get the ashes and be resolved from the sins. You know, that's what.
Okay, so I wonder if they're gonna get into like other carnivals, like Mardi Gras. Now, Mardi Gras is a Catholic holiday. It doesn't start from Christmas. Ooh, wait. Because in New Orleans, parades start around Christmas and Thanksgiving time. I want to say Thanksgiving time. It's been a while. Haven't really been home. Okay. So, but it starts for like a 2-month period. So it's an Ash Wednesday right after. My grandfather used to call it Carnival, and I used to be like, "Why are you calling it Carnival?"
Old school.
Yeah, yeah. So I wonder if they're gonna get into like the relation to that as well.
Yeah, shout out to them for teaching the babies about
Yes.
the music, the costumes, the masks, and everything, and why the carnivals, take place when they do take place. You know what I'm saying? Because again, they are the future, and I think it's important for them to know it because they ain't just out there having fun. There's a huge meaning behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Very
right.
big one.
That's it.
And that's when, after Ash Wednesday, that's when the Lent period starts.
Yes.
Yes, and we have to remember the name Carnival.
Yes.
Its very origin is a farewell to the flesh.
Yes.
Right, and so in an interesting way, there is this interesting, and again, if we think about it, both as a mode of celebration and expression, but also as a way of a kind of throwing off of all of the usual modes of oppression, if only for these 2 days. There's a sense, and I think it's a deeply religious sense, of allowing the soul this moment of expression through this art form. So it's an interesting kind of almost a contradiction between the spiritual side of it, as well as some would say the revelry and the bacchanal, as we call it in Trinidad.
Yes, definitely. Well, you have the different islands that has their own tradition. Most of them follow the Catholic calendar, like we said, after Christmas until Ash Wednesday. But let's focus a little bit on Trinidad right now and the islands that have the same tradition. You have different events during the Carnival week. I want to say you have Juve, you have Ash Wednesday, you have the Carnival Tuesday, which we call Mardi Gras in the other islands.
We have the Mardi Gras.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, let's start with you, Rose. Can you tell me a little bit about the Mardi Gras, the Carnival Tuesday, and the Ash Wednesday?
Okay, well, I'll start from the Juve.
Oh, Juve,
Juve
okay.
is the beginning of the carnival. It starts like 5 o'clock in the morning, and the clothes that are worn are from the years before, or old clothes, and they dress with mud and paints all over the bodies, and they come out at this time. And we have the music trucks, and they go on the streets and parade. And then when the sun comes up, like about 10 o'clock, they go back home and they dress on Monday into their nice costumes. But before they...
That is interesting because we have, of course, I just said Mardi Gras, and we have Juve, that word. We have both of those celebrations in the United States as well. So that's interesting because I would have never thought that Mardi Gras was related to the carnivals that they have in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it plays a big role.
Right, like I always knew it was a Catholic holiday. I knew, dang, it was the man name that came in New Orleans and he was like, it's Mardi Gras.
Okay, yeah, I remember you made
Yeah,
that mention.
the explorer who came in New Orleans. I can't think of the name right now. But, yeah, so it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know why I say I like it, but I do like it. I understand it.
Right.
We have what is called the Mardi Gras, from the French word again. And we have all we have the calypsos, and we have the competitions of the Queen and King of Carnival on this particular night. And the calypsos is all a commentary about politics and whatever is going on in the country at that particular time. And then it goes into the Juve. And then
the Juve.
into Carnival Monday, where Carnival Monday evening, where we go. Now we just dress not in full costumes, and we parade. We still go on the stage and have a great time. But Carnival Tuesday is the day.
Yes.
And we
Tuesday.
get
Fat
out
Tuesday.
there.
Fat Tuesday.
We start getting dressed at 5 o'clock in the morning.
And it's all
Because
day
the-
celebration.
It's all day. Because the bands, we meet at 7. We have to be there at 7. If we're not there, the trucks go without the masqueraders. So you have to be there, and everybody's dressed in the full costumes.
And they celebrate
And
all day
they
on
celebrate,
the music.
yes.
Ooh, I
Just
know
to
they be
clarify,
hot.
Juve is a French word and it means the day's opening, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it's important that how Juve came about was that during slavery, the slaves were anxious to start the carnival as soon as possible because for them it was really an important kind of spiritual ceremony. So they sort of implemented a kind of curfew, if you will, so that it couldn't begin until first light. And it's important, part of the wearing of the old clothes and the old rags, again, keeping in mind the sort of spiritual relevance from Juve morning to Carnival Tuesday. There's a lot more mud mass and paints and different things like that. And if you follow that to Carnival Tuesday, it's almost a movement of rebirth. So that you move from the mud mass to the Monday mass where you're in partial costume, where the revelry begins. And then on Tuesday, as we call it, you have the pretty mass. And it's almost as if you move from sort of,
explosion.
yes, from the caterpillar to the butterfly sort of thing.
Well, that's a great history. So now let's fast forward to today, 21st century. Now, a lot of
Hold
people
on.
think
Before we fast forward to today,
Uh-oh.
as I'm listening to them speak, I just can't help but think of the resilience of our people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being the transatlantic slave trade and losing those traditions, but still keeping as much as they could,
As much as
coming
they could.
to a new land, all the stops off the boat, a new land, having to go through the things they went through and create new identities, and then take on the traditions of the people who enslaved our people. Like, it's like they have a three-dimensional identity, and that shows right there the resilience and perseverance of our people, and just, it's something to be proud of when you look back on our history, because oftentimes when we look back on our history, we want to be sad, mad at what happened,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
look at what our people did in the midst of.
Right,
They
right.
say, yes, you did this, but let me show you, let me add my little spice on it. You call it Carnival? Okay, let me show you what I can do with it.
By any means necessary. Really, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carnival, like, well, we have Carnival in Miami coming up in a month. So just think of the costume, the music, the liquor in the street, basically. So they don't really know the history of it, and some people don't really want to know about it. Just think about the fun part, and it's
Right.
such a rich history. Let's talk about the costume first, how the costume evolved. And I know, Rose, that you've been designing costume for a long time now. So can you tell me how the costume evolved to what it was 20 years ago to now?
Yeah. Well, we first started off imitating the French masters, and the word mass came from masquerade, because the French used to have these masquerade balls, and they would dress up all fancy, and the slaves, would mimic them and wear these costumes, and then we evolved into now where we wear more skimpier costumes, and it's the emancipation of the women.
We're actually showing some pictures of
Yes.
the band Generation X right now
Yes.
to show some example.
Right. So now you see the reason for the skimpier costumes. Women feel, and you see more women in the band than men, because they feel, they overpower the emancipation, the freedom. It's the freedom of the woman. Yes.
Patricia,
Okay.
you wanted to add something?
Well, I would also say, in addition to the beauty of mass, again, we focus on the costumes, but there's also two other important components that are integral to Carnival. Calypso music, which is an important mode of social commentary that also provides the soundtrack, if you will, for Carnival, and of course steel band. And so one of the other things that's interesting, for example, in terms of how Carnival broke out of the Caribbean, you had Caribbean people migrating, inter-island migration.
Yeah.
So the Carnival grew in that regard, and it was further creolized, because as you say, there's Carnival in Guadeloupe and Martinique and
Right now,
Jamaica.
they're showing actually pictures of the
Grenada.
Carnival Nation in Miami, which
Right.
is a band that came from Toronto. So
Exactly.
you see the
And
different costumes.
same thing with the steel band. You have steel pan in Tokyo. You have steel pan
All the way
to
on the
Tokyo?
African
It's
continent.
everywhere.
It's really
Literally.
mutated. I just returned from Notting Hill Carnival
Notting
in
Hill
London,
Carnival, yes.
which is huge. I mean, and
when
these
does
are.
this take place usually?
It's usually the last Monday in
So
August.
they don't follow the Catholic calendar
Exactly.
for those ones.
Right.
Okay, so
and,
like
it,
the Miami
and,
one.
and Miami doesn't. In New York City, it's Labor Day. It's on Monday. I think the Monday after
So
Labor
you have
Day.
Notting Hill Carnival end of August. You have Labor Day in New York, and
Yes.
after in October you have Miami.
Miami. We can't forget Caribana. one
Caribana,
the
of course,
biggest
in July in
in
Toronto.
July, DC, Atlanta. I mean, so in a way, the different places that that Carnival has sort of proliferated to is an indication of all of the different paths of migration of Caribbean people. And so it's interesting that in all of these places, as it's broken away from the Lenten calendar, it's also become an expression of pan-Caribbean solidarity. So many people will say that Carnival is one of the places where Caribbean Federation succeeded. Right? It may not have succeeded politically, but it has certainly succeeded culturally.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's a bar.
Yes, and going back to the comment that one of our supporters made about the relation, did I mention the comment? Okay. Well, there was a comment one of our supporters made that Mardi Gras was a part of Carnival. I didn't say that. I feel like I did. I don't know. But was a part of Carnival, and that's what kind of confused me because it was when the explorer landed in New Orleans and said, "Oh, it's Mardi Gras today," that Mardi Gras came about in the United States.
Okay.
So that is what kind of confuses me. Our Mardi Gras don't have any Caribbean aspects to it at all.
Well, I think when it comes to the decoration, everything is on a float.
Yeah, like.
But that's not no Caribbean way of doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. We don't dress in those costumes. Most of the time it's cold.
Yeah, the weather, yeah.
Yeah, like all I could think of is purple, gold, and green. That's
But-
the colors of Mardi Gras.
Yeah, but they're making it as like it's more of a comparison with it too. And
What do you mean?
like how they're explaining it, like with Mardi Gras too and the carnivals and everything, just like there's some level of comparison to it.
Right. And I actually think she said Mardi Gras.
I heard her say it. She did not say
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras. It's like
Yeah,
when
she
she
said
first said
Mardi
it, I
Gras.
heard it, but
Right, but when she
it was
repeated
foreign,
it, she
like-
said Mardi Gras. So I don't know. If y'all know the answer to that, let us know.
Everybody
in
comes
terms of-
together,
exactly.
celebrate together.
Exactly.
Well, talking about
add-
it, go ahead.
To add what Patrick just said, I was invited to Gabon, Africa, to do Carnival there this year.
Wow.
About the president, they were celebrating the 50th anniversary from the French, and they wanted to have a Carnival celebration. So we took costumes, and they.
Okay, sorry for stopping it right there, but yeah, it was a French explorer, so I can see the relation, but we don't have no Caribbean aspects. That's the only thing I'm kind of like I'm not understanding.
yeah, we don't have that at all.
Like we have more of Louisiana history. We have, the Native American influences, not really Native, influences. We have African American influences. Of course, the French. I can't think of anything Caribbean that we have when it
and
comes
everything
to our
else
Mardi
would
Gras.
come to the music is our music influence. And
Right.
that just dates all the way back to when we started hip hop
Right.
and everything.
And bounce music
Yeah.
and yeah.
Had a great time.
Oh, wow.
It was
Well, it's
so
definitely an
Carnival,
international
yes,
celebration.
it is.
Well, another component is the children carnival. A lot of
Yes.
time people forget that children are also in carnival, and it's a different day. I know in Miami
Yes,
usually it's a
it's
week before the
It's October 3rd.
Okay, and you design costumes for some of the children.
Yes, I have a kids band. And at the kids carnival, you really see the creativity in carnival, So I'm inviting you to come down to the Betty
Yes,
Ferguson.
Gotta keep
So
it
how
family
does the
friendly.
children react to the costume and the music? Do they understand fully what is happening?
Yes, well, I do it as a teaching for the kids. So when they come, I explain to them what the costume is about and what they're portraying so that they
American?
understand what we're doing. So on that day, you can see the kids really expressing themselves, because when they put
They
on the
understand.
costume,
Yeah.
oh, this is me. If I'm the Batman, I'm portraying that costume.
There
You
So
know?
they will know the difference between dressing up for Halloween and dressing up for
Yes.
carnival.
And I think one of the interesting things, both with the Kiddies Carnival and the costume itself, is that the costume is a way of telling a story. Every band has a theme or a narrative. More often than not, it can be
Hey.
What you got?
Some people do dress up for Mardi Gras.
What they put on?
They put on costumes.
The only thing I've seen is in New Orleans.
Yeah, in New Orleans they put on costumes. Now, that's not everybody's culture though.
Yeah.
Like the ethnic groups. My family has never dressed up. We got an outfit together. Okay, not red, white, and blue. Green, purple, and gold. Okay, we got an outfit together. We didn't dress up. But I do have cousins who did the masking, the Indian masking.
Right.
Well, I do have cousins. They still do it. And of course, you know, the social clubs, the Zulu. Yeah, but some cultures in New Orleans do dress up.
Yeah,
I
but
can't think of a costume right
but
now.
when it comes to like the Caribbean way of doing it,
No.
is not the. They dress up. They cover fully head to toe, and they do dress
Yeah.
like that from the very beginning of the day to the end of the however long it lasts for. And I made her remember she made a mention talking about they would have their outfit, their suits on at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and they would keep it on for the entire day. And that's how we do it as well. Whenever they put on their traditional outfits.
Right, right. And you also got to think of the chicken run.
Mm-hmm.
Now that takes place more in your neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
They be dressing up in some questionable things sometimes.
Can't tell you.
And honestly, I don't know the full history of the chicken run to say that it's questionable, but it do resemble some questionable things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but like they do, what's this thing called?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
And skulls and see, look, this is Mardi Gras. They dress up in They dress up in whatever they want to dress up in.
She just showed me, y'all. I'm not 200% sure. I've never seen nobody dress up like that.
That's like more the first quarters.
Yeah, let's see.
Epic narrative, where each section is almost a different chapter,
Yes.
if you will, in the telling of the story. And so I think for kids who are accustomed to sort of story time and where their imaginations are greatest, it really is an opportunity for them to sort of inhabit that imaginary world
Yes.
through the costuming and through the carnival as well. And I think that also translates into the adult carnival because there's a long tradition of oral culture in the Caribbean, and that oral culture is not just verbal storytelling, but performance. Performance is one of the ways we pass on our history and passed on our
And
culture.
hence the name for Heritage TNT, because I wanted to teach them about the culture of the carnival. So last year we did how the people came to the Caribbean. Different faces, one people, the Caribbean. And this year we're teaching how carnival came to be. So
Well, my last question: a lot of people who will not be from the Caribbean watching the carnival in Miami. Sometimes they think that it's very sexualized, and the women are basically wearing clothes that doesn't cover that much on the body, and they do not understand where it comes from. They do not understand the purpose of it. What would you like to say about that?
I think I would want to say to people that, I mean, it is sexualized. Sex is a part of our lives. I mean, it's how we procreate. But it's also, when you keep in mind, again, this notion of emancipation. One of the reasons, I think, in Trinidad to date, I think women outnumber men something like 6-1, right?
Wow.
That there's a way in which women come out to express themselves. And it doesn't mean it has to only be sexually, but it's a freeing up away from these kinds of, mores that say to be a woman in this sphere, you have to dress this way and speak this way and act this way. For these 2 days of the year, you find men dressing as women, women dressing as men, adults dressing as children. The idea of Carnival is the turning upside down of the world, and the powerful become the meek and the poor, and vice versa. So I think that that's an important, and again, it's interesting because that's represented in the costume, but it's also represented in the revelry, that there's a kind of abandon almost and togetherness about, it's some of those boundaries that for the other 363 days of the year that keep us in our confined communities. I think they're taken down just for that moment so that we can really begin to experience one another at a different level.
All right. Basically, she said, let loose, let go, and be free and
Be free.
relaxed and without judgment. Basically, that's what I got out of that last part.
Yes, I did as well. Just emancipation. That's all it's about.
It was covered up.
Yeah. Just taking away the bounds and the walls and everything people put up to divide us.
Yeah. Again, still want to know a little more about the relationship with Mardi Gras and the carnivals,
Right, because
That's
we get
interesting.
it, but it's still different.
Yeah.
So, we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. You can support this video through our super thanks, as well as our reaction request form is in our description box below. We'll see you soon.
Peace.